Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Prashant and today we are going to create one more application in SwiftUI. So in today's video we are going to create a complete application which is called as habit tracking. So in this application basically what you are going to do is you are going to create some new items for your list which will be your habits. For example, here you can see that I have this named as Prashant and I am written here the subtask as iOS dev. So basically you can add some features and you can increment those values and those values will get saved. So for example, if you want to track your habit like how many bananas you have eaten today, so you can see that if I go inside and if I increment it by 1 and if I come back it will be get saved there. Also suppose you have want to record that how many number of bottles I have drank today, so now it is 3 and if I go inside and if I increment by 1 then it will be 4 and it will get saved. And if I kill this application then also it will save that data, you can see. And if you want to enter a new entry, so you can click on this plus button. So like I will add my new habit as iOS and how many features I have completed today, so I will say features completed today, and when I save it it will come into this list. By default it will be 0 and I can increment. So if I completed 3 features today, so I will save that, and again if I kill this application and if I open it, it will be saved there. So this is what we are going to create today. So basically in this application you will learn how to create a list and show data, then how to present a model view, and how to, so suppose if I say ABC here and I will say that test here, and how to add the data here using text fields, and if I save here, how to pass that data to the previous screen and show it inside the list. This is what we are going to see. This was actually asked by one of the subscribers, so this is good feature for them to learn. Then one more thing is if I click on this, how I can pass that data to the detail view. This is also we are going to learn. And again the last thing what we are going to learn is if I increment the value here, that value will be reflected back in my list. So this is what we are going to learn today. So without further ado, let's get started and create this type of application. So I will, like always, I will create a new xcode project. I am using here xcode beta, so make sure you are using xcode 12 and above. Click new project. Let's click here app and let's name it as habit tracking. Make sure here you have this SwiftUI selected, SwiftUI app, and language is Swift. Click next. Then let's save it on our desktop. Okay, so let's just resize this canvas and we can start. So at the start we don't need canvas, so I can close this and I can just make this screen like this so that you can see what we are building. So you can see that here we are showing different types of activities which we are going to track. So first we need to create a model for that, so let's start with that. So first we'll create a new file. It could be a normal Swift file. Let's name it as activity, and inside this I want to track my different values, so I will create a new struct. Let's name it as activity, which will be confirming to identifiable and codable. So identifiable, since we want to show the data on the list, so it will uniquely define each element, so that's why we have marked this as identifiable. So inside this we will create one ID, which will be nothing but UUID. Then we need name, so let's create a name of type string. Then we need description, so let's say let description will be of type string, and the last thing we want is count, so you can see count will be of type integer. So you can see all these three values, name, description and count here. Name, description and count. So we have our model class ready. Now we want to create one activities class which will be basically responsible for all the data saving and fetching. So basically we are going to save our data in the user default, so that is also what we are going to learn in today's video. So let's create that. So my class will be like this class. I will call it as activities, and it will be conforming to observable object. I will explain you in a while why we are using here observable, because whenever the value of this var activity is going to change, we want to get the data. So that's why we have declared this class as observable, and it will be nothing but my array of different activity, which nothing but this. And also we need to mark it as published so that we will get the data published, so we will get the data once this value gets changed. So what I will do is I will just create a completion block here. Inside this I will create a did set, so whenever the value of this gets changed, it will call this did set and it will save the value. So here what we are going to do is whatever the user is entering data here, so we want to, so if I open this add activity part here, whatever the user is going to enter this data, we have to encode that data and save it inside our user defaults. So that is what we are going to do here. So let's create our encoder. Encoder will be nothing but JSON encoder, and then I will say if let encoded equals to try, because it may throw error. So encoder dot encode, and we have to encode the activities which we are getting here, which is nothing but an array. And now if it is fine, it is encoded, then we can save it inside our user defaults. So I will say user defaults dot standard dot set, and here I want to say that value for key, and value will be my encoded value, and key we can say that let's call it as activities. Okay, so now we have saved our data. This is one part. Let me just remove the extra spacing here. Okay, so now we have done with the saving of data, but we need to create also an initializer here, which will basically give us all the data which is saved inside the this user defaults. So all the data which is saved inside user defaults as activity array, that we want to fetch here, and let's do that so that it will be passed to our main this list view here. So let's do that. I will say if let, so I'm using if let here because I want to check if there are any elements or not, otherwise I will return just like 0 nil I can say. So let's say let activities, if let activities equals to, I will need to fetch the data from the user default. So I will say user defaults dot standard dot data for key, and key will be again same with this key. So let's copy that. Okay, so here if I got the data, then I will say now here I have encoded, so here I need to decode it. So let's use decoder. That decoder equals to JSON decoder, and inside this I will say if let decoded data equals to try, again it may throw error, that's why try. Decoder will be decoding from the this activity, but I need to fetch the array, so that's why activity array dot self, and from I will say this will be getting the data from the activities. Okay, so now if let is working fine, then I can go inside, and here I can say self dot activities can be assigned with the decoded data which we have decoded, and after this I can just say read. Okay, here I have just typed it wrong. Here we need to say decoder. Okay, so we need to say here dot decode, Yeah, then now it's fine. Okay, so inside this what we can do is, now we have got our data, we have assigned it, this is everything is inside if let. But what if we are not getting anything, then we need to assign the blank brackets. So let's do that and assign a blank array. So we'll say let self dot activities, not the dollar sign, self dot activities equals to empty bracket. So it will assign with the empty braces here. So now we can do the actual part where we'll create an add activity view now. So let's create a new class which will be nothing but this activity, where we are going to create now this one, where we are going to get activity name and description and create that part. So let's start with that now. So I will create a new file and let's name it as add activity. It will be a SwiftUI view. Let's call it as add activity. Click on create. Okay, so now we have our class here. So now let's start with writing the code for this. So inside this I will create first so basically we need to track name and description. So we'll create properties for that. And the state, I will say private var name, and I will assign it to blank. Same I will do for other description property. Okay, so now we have this. Now we can do is we can start our view creating. So as you can see here, I have the title as add activity. So I will create a navigation view, and then inside this I will create a form, and inside form I can create these two text fields. Then I have to give placeholder here first. So I will say activity name, and then I have to give the here text, which will be the actual value what we are going to do. So I will say here, sorry for the background noise, $name I'm going to save. So it's like this, and again just copy this and paste it here. And second will be here description. So let's replace this text with description, and I'll say here description with $sign. So this is how we create two text fields. Now we need to design our view. So let me just remove these extra spacing. Okay, so first I want to give, so now I can just resize this so we can see our view building here. So I will open the canvas view. Let me just click on the resume. Okay, so you can see our navigation bar is here. We have two text fields. Now we want to give the title. So I will give like this. Inside our navigation view I will say dot navigation bar title. I will say here as add activity. Okay, then we need to give a save button also here like this. So let's do that. So for that you have this option dot navigation bar items, and I want to give a button on the right side. So I will say trailing. And for the view, what I can do is I can just create a normal function like this. So inside this braces I will say enter, and then I can create a view inside here. So I will say I want to create a button. So I will create a button like this, button whose title will be save, and then we can create the action for our button. So our button action will be nothing but, so you can see the button is reflecting here. So what I want to do is when I save, I have to check whether the values are present or not. So here you can see if I try to save the blank thing, then I will have to present a pop-up which will say that please enter correct activity or description. So let's do this. So first I need to check the values are filled or not. So I will say if self dot name not equals to empty braces, and because we want to make sure both the fields are filled, so I will say self dot description again not equals to empty braces, then you can go ahead. Else if this is not true, then I have to do the this showing of the alert, so that we will do in some time. First we'll do the next part. So what I have to do here is, if this both are correct, then I have to make an activity which is we have created here. This we have to make an activity with those two values, and by default the value for the count will be 0, and I have to make an activity of that, and I have to save that. So for saving also we have created our files here to save and here to fetch, so we are going to use those here. So let's create our activity. So I will say let activity equals to my main activity, and inside this I have this id, name and description. So I'm going to use name and description only. So for name I will say name, and for description I will say description. Okay, and again for count I will say 0. So this is how we have created our activity. Let me just close this right pane so that you can see it properly. Let me just, okay, so you can see that we have created our activity. Now we have to save this activity. So for that I will say self, but to fetch that class, this activities class which we have created here to save, I need to first create an instance of that in this class. So let's create that. So I will say here @observed object, and I will say var activities yeah, of type activities, and this activities. Okay, now we have this, so now we can use it to save the value. So I will say here self dot activities dot my actual activities which are we have created here, this, then I will say here dot append in that array new activity, which is this. So let me just click this also and close this so that you can see it properly. So I have just created a button, and inside button action I have said if these two values are correct, then create a new activity and save that activity or append that activity in my current array, which is inside the user default. So it will save the value inside the user defaults, and it will do that. So this is how we can create this new activity and save it. But after saving it, whenever you click on save, this view should get dismissed. So for that what you can do is you can create something like this at the top first, one environment and variable. So I will say @environment, and inside this I have to create this dot presentation mode. I will say var, and again I will say presentation mode. Here you can say anything, so I am just calling it presentation mode, and now I can use that here to dismiss my view. So I will say self dot presentation mode dot wrapped value dot dismiss. So by writing this line of code, it will just dismiss our model view. So now this is done. Now we can do the else part, where here I have checked if everything is good, then go ahead and save the activity, else I have to show the pop-up. So for showing the pop-up also we need to create one state property at the top. So let's create that. So whenever that state property gets false to true, then you have to show the alert. So we'll create this state property here. I have it where I will say that showing alert is by default set to false, and now when this will be turning to true, then I have to show the toast. So let me just alert. So I will say dot showing alert dot toggle. So it will, so toggle function basically turns value from false to true and true to false. So for that what we have to do is, now I will come outside my this else, outside button. So after that I will come outside this navigation bar button, and then outside that I will come outside navigation view, and here I have to give the alert this like this, and here I have to say not actual this value, I will use this is presented one voila. Then what I will do here is I will say is presented, here I have to pass this key with $, that if it is showing alert is true then only show the alert. So let's create our alert here. So I will say alert with title message, and we can take title and message for now. So let's start with title. I will say my title as text with oops. Then let me just check the message once. Oops, please enter the correct activity / description. So we can give the message like that. Message will be again text, and my message will be please enter the correct activity / description. So this is how we can just show the alert, but we have just created our alert. Now we want to give other properties also, like here I want to say dismiss button I also have to give, and for dismiss button I want to give some text, so that will be just okay because we don't want to perform anything on that. So this is how I create a dismiss button, and let me just close this bracket. Okay, so now let me just check, there is some error here. Okay, so here I need to give first type, so let me just close this, and here I want to say that dot default, and then for this default button I have to give some text like okay. So now we have created our alert, and this will be presented when this property gets changed. So now let's me just open the canvas view, and let's close this left panel. Now you can see our view is ready. Let me just, so here also we need to preview give something, so this is not necessary, let's remove that. We can close this and open our left panel. Now we have done with the add activity view, where we have basically created a two text fields form. Then once those values are filled, we are saving that activity. If it is not filled and we are clicking on the save button, then we are showing the alert. So now next thing is we want to create our this activity detail view, you can say, where if I click on any activity, you can see that if I click on any activity I am going to the detail screen. So let's create the detail view now. So to add now activity detail view, first we will create a new view. Let's create a new file here. Make sure you select SwiftUI view here, and then I will call it as activity detail view. Let's create this, and we can start coding into this now. So first what I want is, inside this, whenever I will click here on the list, I am sending the data here. So basically I have to get the data here from my main view. So let's create that as observed object where activities, and this will be of type activities. Then I also need to get the index, so I will say let index will be of type index of int, and here basically I'm sending the index of the list item which I'm going to click, and that I'm going to fetch here from the user defaults. So now let's create our detail view. So let me just open the canvas view, click resume, and we can start. Let me just remove this part from here, and we don't need to check the canvas view, we can just directly create our view. So first I need a navigation view. navigation view, because you can see here we have this name at the top. So this is basically our activity name, then this is the activity description and the count. These three values we want to print or display, and then I need one button to increment the value. So we need labels or text, and below that we need one button. So let's create that. So everything is vertically placed, so let's create a v-stack first. Then inside vstack we can create our properties. So first is text, we will call it as activity description, and here I need to display the description. So I will say, I will use string interpolation, and here I will say self dot activities, and inside this I will have activities array, and the index which I have passed I will use that, and inside that I will be having the description key. So this is how I will display this part, description. Then let's create the next one, which is my count. So I will say text, then inside this I will say completion count, and again I will use string interpolation here, and again same self dot activities, then again index dot count. So this is how I will display the count. And yeah, after this let me just add one font of dot heading, headline, and again I need to add some padding, so I will add padding. Okay, so now after this I need to add a button. So let's create the button, and this button will have one title, which is increment the completion count by 1. So I will say increment the completion count by 1, or instead of 1 we can say, yeah, 1 will be okay, so that you can, so whenever you are performing some tasks you can increment it by 1 by 1. And again inside action I need to increment the count. So I will say let count equals to, I need to first fetch the current count. So I will say dot activities, then this index dot count. So this will give me the current count of the activity. So suppose first time you creating an activity, so the count will be 0, and now we need to fetch the or increment that count by 1. So I will say count plus equals to 1. So this will increment the count by 1. Okay, and then I will assign that count or save that count into the activities array. So I will say activities dot activities, inside the index dot count equals to the count value. So this will assign the new count value to the activities array. And after this I need to add some spacer, so that my this view which is at the center will be pushed up. So this spacer will push that up. Also I need to add some padding, so let's add that padding here, which will be the horizontal padding. Okay, so padding I have added. Now what I need to do is, at the last I need to give this, my outside my navigation view I need to give this title at the top, which is nothing but my activity name. So let's use that navigation bar title, and I will say here text, and I will pass the text as self.activities, then current index dot name. So this will display the name, and also I want to say the display mode as dot inline, which will put the this title on the navigation bar. Instead of giving a big style, large style navigation bar, it will give the navigation bar as like this. Okay, so now we have our detailed view ready. Now we need to go to the new file. We have to create a new file, or also we don't need to create a new file because content view file we already have. Now here we need to do the actual coding of the main view, which is this list with this title, and we need to create this. So let's start by doing this, and this plus button also we have to give, on which click we have to present a view modally like this. So let's create this now. So the first thing what I want to do is I want to create two properties first. One will be activities, so I will say @observed object where activities, this will be of type activities. This is because whenever we initialize our this activities, this will basically fetch, this is the first class which we have created, it will fetch all the values from the user defaults for the activities and show it us in this array, so we can display that in our list. So that's why we have created this property. And after this I need one more property, that is @state private var showing add activity view, which is by default false. So whenever this value gets true, we need to show the model view of the add activity. So for that we will click on this plus button and we will enable that to true, so that we can present this new view modally. So that's why this property is there. So now we can start creating our view. So let's do that. Let me just full size this and turn on the canvas so that we can see the view building. Okay, so here I need the first thing as navigation view. Then inside navigation view I need to use list. List will go from 0 to less than my total activities. So I will say activities dot count, and then after this I need to pass the id. Id will be dot self. So basically we have created this here as an identifiable which is using this id, so we don't need to pass any other id. It will take that here for the list, and then inside this list we can say that I'm getting one item. So I will say here index in. Now inside this what I have to do is I have to create a navigation view because navigation link, because when I click on this I need to go to the detail view. So for that we need to create a navigation link. So let's create that navigation link, which will take one destination. So destination is nothing but our activity detail view. So let's create that activity detail view, and it will take some activities, which is nothing but my main activities which I have got at the top here. And then I need to pass the index also. So index is nothing but the row where I am clicking. So whenever I click on anything I will get that here, and I am passing that here to the main activity detail view. So now the next thing is we need to create a view for this where I can display values like this, these two vertically and count horizontally. So let's create that. So first I will create an h stack, and inside this h stack I can create a v stack. V stack will have alignment dot leading, and I can create this like this, and I can give the values. So vertically I have to display the name and description, and count will be horizontally. So first display the vertical part, which is text self dot activities, then index dot name, then the second part is text, and inside this self dot activities again index, and here I need to display the description. Okay, so we have displayed these two values. Now what I have to do is next I want to display a spacer, so that we will get the space between the count and these two values. So outside the v stack I will create a spacer, and after that I will display the my count. So I will say here self dot activities, and here I will fetch the index dot count. Okay, so here I will get the value and I will display that here. Now we have this. Let me just click on the resume and see if it is working. Let me just run this views to see. Okay, so there is some problem here. Let me just check. We have this main view. Inside that we have navigation view. Then we have created a list with activities and count, and then inside this we have created a navigation link, and it will take this destination view. It's fine. Then we have created h stack, and inside that we have created a v stack. We have given some alignment. Okay, and this is leading. Then I have given two text. Let me just increase their font so that it will be more visible. So I will say font dot headline. Okay, then I have given a description. Okay, then I have created a spacer and I have passed the text for the activities. Okay, then I have this, and then I need to give some title also to my navigation view. So let me just give that. So this is my navigation view, and inside this I have to give title. So let's give that navigation bar title, and it will be habit tracking. Let's give that habit tracking. So it looks like there is some error because see here it is not reloading. So let me just check it once if we are missing anything here. H stack we have created properly, V stack we have created. So we started seeing the error after writing this part. Let me just write this part again, or since it is an integer value, so let me just use the string interpolation here, and let's click on the build. Let's see. Okay, so it is still giving us some error. Let me just check again. We have created a struct content view where body. Okay, so here there is some mistake. Let me just check this. Activities, I have fetched self dot activities, then index. This count value is actually here. Let me just check what I have written here. Okay, it's count. Let's try to fix it from here and see. Okay, yeah, I forgot to give the braces, so let me just give this to. Okay, now let's click on build again. Let's see. Okay, now it's success. So the issue was here, I have not written proper string interpolation. So now it's working fine. Let's click on try again here to see the output on the actual canvas view. Okay, so now our title is there and you can see an empty list at the bottom. So let's try to create the next part. Now I need to give a plus button at the top, so that we have already seen how we can do that. So for that we need to create a navigation bar item. So I will say navigation bar item, and here I want to give in trailing, so I will say trailing, and inside this I will say one button. So let's say button title will be here. Let me just check. Yeah, we need to say plus. So what I will do here is I will use first action and label action like this, and inside action I will say self dot showing add activity view dot toggle, or I can just set it to true so that whenever I say press that button it will present that value. We don't need to use toggle here. And for the label part, what I will do is let me just create that label colon, and here I need to say an image with system name I will say, and here I will say plus. So you can see that it will update to plus icon. Here is one mistake. I will have to say dot Now you can see here we can see the plus button. Now the last part is we need to present that model is. So for that we have this option where I need to say dot sheet. So when I say sheet, and inside this we have one option is presented. So let's use that, is presented, and for this I need to pass the value of my this showing add activity view. So if this is true, then it will present that add activity view. So let's say add activity view, and here I will say the activities as self dot activities. Okay, so now this is done. Let's run it and see how it will. Okay, so there is some mistake here. Let me just check. We have written dot sheet is presented. Okay, and I'm saying show add activity view. Okay, and then inside this I have said add activity view. Okay, cannot find, it is saying add activity view. So what we have named is as add activity, not add activity view. So let's say add activity. Okay, so now let's run it and see how it is working. So I've run it on actual simulator on iPhone SE so that we can compare both the projects side by side. Okay, so now it's running. So we will add some values inside this once this gets loaded. Okay, so now it's running. Now I just need to press the plus button. You can see it is presented the add activity. Now I will here say that iOS description, I will say features completed, and I will say features completed count, I will say, and then save. Now you can see it is reflecting here. Now I have not completed any task, so I will click here, and it is saying that increment the completion count by 1. So it will say 1. It has updated that. You can see our this activity name and activity description is also here. Count value is also incrementing. I will come back, then I will try to delete this. Let's delete it from the running apps, and now let's reopen the app and see our values is stored or not. Yes, it is stored. So everything is stored using user default. So this is how you can just create, or you can present screens, sorry for the background noise, present screens like this. So let's take one more example. I will say features remaining like this. I will say save and come inside, increase the values, and come back, and you can see it's saving the values there. So this is all about today's video, guys, where I have told you how you can create a list, you can show values in that list, how you can present a new view modally, you can save those values, and how you can reflect those values in the previous screen, and also how you can open the detailed view. Like if I press on this, you can open the detailed view and pass that value there. Also you can increment the values here, and those values will be reflected on your previous view. So this is all about this application or today's video, guys. I hope you guys have learned something new from this video, and to watch more videos like this you can subscribe to my channel. Here you can see I have this YouTube channel where I post daily videos on SwiftUI. So basically I try to learn something new and I try to share that with the community. So you can find the code for my all the videos here. You can see that I have this GitHub repo where I have more than 171 projects. You can just come to this my GitHub profile and download and use those code in your project. Also you can follow me on this Instagram account where I post my daily video updates, so you will not miss any video in the future. Also you can follow me on Twitter where I mostly post my learnings and other things which I found in the community. So there are many big developers, those are sharing their everyday research things. So you can just come here and you can learn many things and very fast from Twitter. So make sure you are having your account on these social sites to make your career much higher. So that's all, guys, for today's video. Thank you for watching and have a great day ahead. Thank you.